Hey, everybody, Dave Hagan here. Hey, if somebody walked up to you and gave you $100,000 gift, how would you spend it? That's today on the Financial Wellness Podcast.
Welcome to the Financial Wellness Podcast, Dave's weekly message to keep you on your path to financial success. Here is your host, financial problem solver and talk show host, Dave Hagan.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Financial Wellness Podcast. You are listening to episode 436, and we're coming to you today from Van Nuys, California, Woodland Hills, California, and San Diego, California. Interesting topic today. How would you spend a $100,000 gift? A problem that we should all have to solve at some point in our life. But first, let's check who's here. Let's look around. Hey, there's Nick Appel. How you doing, Nick?
Hey, there's Dave Hagan.
The Nickster, Nicorama, Nicodemus. Good to have you with us, man.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, so here's the question today. Here's the fun question. All of you listeners out there, quick. Someone walks up and gives you a $100,000 gift. How are you going to spend it?
Dave, Brian might say buy scratchers.
No, not buy scratchers. Last thing we want to do. Oh my goodness. You guys, you're killing me. You're killing me. Let's do this. Nick, how would you spend a $100,000 gift? Quick.
Honestly, Dave, I put it in the S&P and put it in stocks. I put it in stocks.
Nicely played. And the S&P, are you talking about an ETF S&P fund?
Dave, we're not giving financial advice.
Oh, we're not giving financial advice ever. We're asking the Nickster, the trickster, the Nicoramus, what would you do?
I would say put it in the ETF. Just, just put it in something. It gradually increases. And you know what? You put it and you forget about it.
Yeah, no, I like that. You know what I would do, Nick? It's funny. We they say people and their pets start to look alike. Maybe I'm starting to look a lot or think a lot like you. I think that I would put it in an ETF, maybe based upon the S&P, or maybe if I wanted to get a little more enjoyment out of it, I might buy some funds that are slightly more aggressive than an S&P ETF. I thought that I would have been more on the conservative side than you, and your initial impression to be a little more conservative than me. But I mean, I could spend it on stuff. I mean, the new Model S's are out in 100 right there. Be right there. I'd be driving around one of those plaid Teslas, but no, that would be a bad idea in my estimation. I wouldn't want to spend it on stuff. You know what I'd do? I'd either buy a stock that's slightly more aggressive, or I'd just put it like you in an ETF based upon the S&P 500. And if it grew 10% a year, and it would over a period of time, because remember, over the last, 30, 40 years, that fund has grown, or that exchange, not exchange, but the listing, the S&P, 10, 11, 12% a year. But that means that on $100,000, I would get $10,000 a year, or about $800 a month, forever. Some years more than others. Some years, maybe none. Some years, maybe 2 or 3 times as much. But I would get about $800 forever on that $100,000. And I can dig that. How about you?
But Dave, have you seen the recent Tesla price per share of stock?
Yeah, I could buy some Tesla stock.
Oh my God. It's like $1,200.
Yeah. No, I know. About 6, 7, 8 months ago, something like that. It was up to 900, then it went down to 600, and I thought, well, maybe it's had its run, although I still firmly believe in the EV market, the emergence of EV cars, and, Tesla being on the forefront of that. But for it to run to 11 or 1200, crazy thing.
Put trust in Elon. Put trust in Elon.
Elon, my man, he's the new Apple, you know. But one of the reasons that it ran up was it Hertz Rent a Car announced that they were going to buy 100,000 cars from Tesla, and 100,000 cars represent about 20% of Tesla's output. It also represents it represents 10% of Tesla's output. If they're doing 1 million cars, it represents 20% of Hertz's fleet. And the thought was that people would go to Hertz because they wanted to try out or test an electric car, and they were going to pay full price. They weren't getting the usual discounts. And it was a way to have Hertz sit on top of the rent-a-car pile, and off goes the stock. I mean, who would have seen that coming? Who would have ever seen that coming? In fact, it got so bad that Elon had to, I guess, what does he do? Tweet or something last week, where he says, I got to tell you, we haven't signed that contract yet. And, don't buy the stock just for that. Our economics remain the same. We are going to produce this many cars, and we are widening our profit margin on our cars. We are a fundamentally sound company. Don't run up the stock just because of the Hertz announcement. And then Hertz comes back and goes, well, what do you mean? I thought we had an offer and we had an order, and then they're going back and forth. But it really ran up the price. And it seems to me that all happened on the heels of one of the well-known stock analysts saying after they announced earnings, wow, it looks like Tesla has really reached, escape velocity. It's really on its own. I don't want to talk the stock up too much because there's still downsides on it, but yeah, as you can tell, Nick, I'm digging it.
So one thing, Dave, it's like, only one of us owns a Tesla. It's not me. So the thing is that if I had the opportunity, though, like for a birthday present, hey, Nick, you want to rent a Tesla for $200 a day, $300 a day? I don't know how much it costs, but I think it would be a heck of a birthday present. I think it would be fun.
I like that. You working that in on the air. We didn't talk about that pre-production. Very, very smooth. Very, very lawyer-like. I like that.
Only one of us had a birthday in the last week.
Don't rub it in, kid. Don't rub it in. Oh, man. So I'm doing some research leading up to this recording today, and I'm looking at different stories, different ways that people would potentially spend $100,000. And I came across an article in Kiplinger, which is a personal finance website, and they came up with 7 smart things to do if someone were to give you $100,000. Number 1, open an IRA and basically get a bonus, because if you open up an IRA, potentially some of the taxes that have been withheld, you'll get that back later. Okay, I get that. Number 2, retire early. Well, I got to tell you, Nick, this must be an old article, because $100,000 isn't going to help you much in retirement, right? I mean, if it's $800 a month, if you're getting 10%, but you have to factor in taxes and blah, 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 blah. I don't know that it's enough to get you there. 3, help the kids buy a home. I'd say let the kids buy their own damn home. What do you think?
I'm still stuck on number 1. I'm like, Dave, like, even if you're given $1 million, is $1 million enough to retire?
I remember years ago when this whole concept of here's what you need to retire came out, and they said, oh, you need $1 million. And everyone goes, oh my God, I don't need a full $1 million to retire. I think people need multiples of $1 million.
Yeah, but honestly, like, let's say you win the lottery tomorrow. I mean, we've spoken about this recently, but if you received $1 million tomorrow, especially in Southern California, I don't think that's enough.
No, I really don't. I think it's going to take a multiple of $1 million. But to all our listeners, don't let that get you down, because if you start on this soon enough, that money is going to be compounding every 7 to 10 years. And you contemplate how many 7 to 10 year loops you have left in your life. And that money is going to double, and then double on that, double, and then double on that, double on that, double. And really, if you start with it soon enough, early enough, that money can double and you can easily have multiples of $1 million. So don't let that goal prevent you from, starting something.
But also, that's only for Southern California.
Well, true. That's why Texas, Florida, so many other places across the country are filling up. In addition to a lot of other reasons like taxes, but it's a lot easier to live there. I had some family. They were here, born and raised here in Southern California, and they picked it up and they moved to Texas just because that's where they were able to buy a house. They weren't going to be able to buy a house here. So,
or Arizona too.
Same thing with Arizona, Nevada, outskirts of Vegas, Summerlin, Henderson, very affordable.
Dave, do not let Brian near the scratchers.
he'll buy them all, and they'll all be all the gas stations and stuff will have none available, huh? Oh,
I mean, it's Vegas.
You gotta love it. You gotta love it. Let's see, where were we? Number 4, buy a camper van. No, I'm not a fan of that. And yes, you could justify it if you say, oh, we're going to travel and that's going to be our summer vacation for so many years, blah, blah, blah. But camper van's a depreciating asset like a car. Not a big fan. Number 5, buy an off-the-grid cabin. Well, I guess maybe if you're going to use it a lot, but most people kind of get tired of those things after 6, 7, 8 years. If you think it's going to go up in value, yeah, maybe you might enjoy it for a while, have a nice little run, and then sell it. Number 6, charter a yacht. No, charter a yacht. You're just buying a very expensive, over-the-top experience. And number 7, run for public office. I don't know where they came up with all of these ideas. A couple of them are actually a pretty good idea, but maybe some of these were tongue-in-cheek to have people read the article. I don't know. Who else? Some other people that might have some suggestions. How about our good friend Ryan Steiger? If you want to look back to episodes 320 and 321, maybe even 322, we interviewed Ryan, and he's the author of a book, The Dividend Hunter, available on Amazon. And he said that what you should do is buy a bond that pays income tax-free, like a muni bond, or at least a bond if it's not tax-free, a bond, something that's going to pay you income. Basically, go out with that $100,000 and buy income. That's interesting. I'm not sure that I like the whole tax-free end of it at this point because the interest rates are so low. But think about that. You could go out and use that $100,000 to buy income for the rest of your life. Kind of like what I was thinking about, what you were thinking about, Nick. Hey, let's go out and buy some of that S&P 500 and watch it grow or live on the increase in value. It's funny how these things work out. Just this morning, I was looking at a video, and it was our good friend Shaquille O'Neal. And he was relating this story. He said when he was young, his manager called him and he said, hey, a check just came in for $1 million. And he immediately thought, oh, wow, what am I going to do with $1 million? Now, NBA players have bigger problems, right? It's $1 million. Nick, you and I are talking about 100,000, but this is Shaq. Shaq goes big. And he said, geez, I thought about what I could do with it. And I thought about that black Mercedes and the wheels and the rims and the da-da-da-da-da-da. So I went out and got one. And then when I brought it back home, my dad wanted one. So I went out and got one for him. And then my mom wanted one. And then my agent wanted one, something like that. And he goes, geez. And one day I bought all these Mercedes and brought them home. And my manager says, hey, you just spent the whole $1 million. And he added it up in his mind. And he said, no, I didn't spend $1 million. Those cars didn't add up to anywhere near $1 million. And the manager says, but after your taxes that you should withhold and your food and your da-da-da-da-da, you spent $1 million in one day, Mr. O'Neal. Now, there's a pretty good business manager because most sports managers are not that firm with their clients. But Shaq thought about that and he says, geez, I need to get smart about some of this. So he started asking questions. He started thinking about investing. He started thinking about the bigger picture, not just basketball. And now it's interesting. Now he owns part of a pizza chain and he appears in their ads. And apparently he's now richer than ever, Magic, kind of the same thing. Magic Johnson, remember back in the day, he bought a Coke distributorship, and he's doing pretty well. Made a lot of money on that. Kobe,
Well,
go ahead.
Dave, before we move on, I think, Shaq's a philanthropist. I don't know if you know this or not, but he has a deal with Walmart to where he has provided an exponential amount of shoes with his name on for a very valued price for people who cannot have a brand name of shoes. And, not only that, but Shaq also has a deal with Papa John's to where if you buy a Papa John's pizza with the Shaq name, it gives $1 to some charity. I wholly respect that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But I think he also understands that, charity, in addition to being very valuable in and of itself, is good promotion.
100%.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you mentioned the shoes, because I heard him talking about that a couple days ago. He was being interviewed, or he was on the air, and they were talking about shoes. And he said, well, how much do these shoes cost? And they were talking about, it's $100, it's $150. And he thought to himself, geez, man, there's a lot of kids out on the playground that don't have that kind of dough. And they still deserve to wear good looking shoes. They don't want to be wearing dopey shoes and the kids looking down on them.
Exactly.
So he goes to Walmart and he develops these shoes that I forget, he brought some designer from Reebok or a big company across, and they designed these really good looking shoes, but the price point was $25, $29, so that kids could go out and have Shaq on their shoes for a lesser price and still feel cool and empowered.
Dave,
big thinking on his part.
I'm on Walmart.com, and guess how much his shoes are?
How much are they?
Guess.
$30.
$19.98.
Wow. Do you got a pair? Don't answer that. You can take the fifth. I know, but they work. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, we would go to Tom McAn, and a lot of people out there don't even know what Tom McAn is anymore. But all we could afford were Joe Lapchick, who I guess was a basketball player back in the day. And they were like the cheapest you could get. And the thing that I remember about them is whenever I would wear them, we'd go out and play basketball. They would put a blister on my big toe the size of a nickel. But hey, that's what we had. This was back before, big fancy shoes were there.
Well, Dave, you played with a rock as a basketball back in the day, right?
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Let's move on. All right. Kobe, by the way, bought a part of Body Armor, and Coca-Cola just bought out Body Armor, and his wife is going to get $400 million on that investment. It's just stunning. Those athletes that are forward thinking and ask the right questions and are willing to follow their manager's lead, a lot of them do really well. But that's what Shaq's first experience was. I want to get back to that. That's Shaq's first experience. He had $1 million come in, and he spent $1 million that day. Another good example, I've got a very, very good family friend, and this happened some time ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago. He's married. He and his spouse have good jobs, a couple kids in school, house with a mortgage. And he called me one time at 2 a.m. and I pick up the phone and go, hello. This is when we had corded phones. And he says, hey, how you doing? I'm in Vegas. We want $160,000. And I thought, wow, that's good for you. Good luck. And we'll talk about it when you get back. Because I was, coming out of a dead sleep. And my wife says, oh, what did he want? What's up with him? And I said, well, he's either very lucky or very drunk in Vegas tonight. And he's not really a drinker, so he wasn't drunk. It does turn out that he was extremely lucky that night. I don't know about you, Nick. I never won that kind of money. I feel pretty good when I win $25 on the slot.
Yeah, same. I'm not gonna talk about Vegas.
So in preparation for the show, I circled back to him a little while back, and I said, what did you do with that money? Because we're going to do a show talking about what you would do if you got $100,000 gift. And, he got a gift, if you will. I mean, many would argue that it was actually he won it at poker, I think. So there was some skill involved, but it was pretty much a let's call it a windfall, a windfall. And I asked him what he did with it because I was interested in his experience in spending a windfall. And he said that he spoke with a financial advisor or a CPA, he doesn't remember who, but they advised him to do two things. First, pay down taxes. And this is a huge issue because some types of windfalls are taxable. And remember that your biggest expense every single month is your government. And secondly, the person advised him to pay down their mortgage. So he said, geez, I remember I had to almost send half to the governments, the state and federal, and then we paid down the mortgage. And I asked him, I said, well, that's pretty conservative advice, good advice, but conservative advice. You have any regrets now that you look back on it 10, 15 years later? And he said, no, except for I might have spent just a little more on myself, just a little piece of it on myself. Now, at that period of time, he was, younger in his life curve, and he was committed to his financial philosophy, basically a version of financial wellness that he was pursuing. And he went big. He put it all in to reduce the mortgage. And he said, of course, I'd do it differently now that the kids are gone and I'm looking at retirement. So he would have done it a little bit differently, but not too much. I was interested to see what his thoughts are. I mean, paying down your mortgage, that's not sexy, that's not fun. I mean, unless you're so crazily committed to your goals, which you should be to some extent. But he said, I wish I had spent a little bit more on myself. Very, very illuminating. And this is a guy that has always, not lived big, but lived well. He's always had nice cars. Of course, he's got a very, very nice car now. And apparently it's come back to pay huge dividends. So now that he's looking at working a little bit less, doing some other things, I think that they're doing very well. So very illuminating on someone who lived through this exact kind of experience. And thank you to my good friend and his wife for allowing me to share this story. So what kind of takeaways from this story, since this is a real life story? One, always see the tax man first. Two, what you do depends upon your life situation. You might do something different now than you would do in 10, 15 years. Three, it should fit into your overall life plan. And four, find a way to maybe enjoy or remember the big event. If you really dig owning your home with no debt, do that. Or owning your home with substantially less mortgage, do that. If not, go out and do something. Take a small little piece. Balance, have some balance between living for today and tomorrow. Now, to our listeners, you've heard some stories. You've heard me. You've heard Nick. You've heard Shaq O'Neal and a good family friend. What did you think of a few minutes ago when I said, hey, how would you spend $100,000? Well, what you thought of can actually be very revealing about you. It can show you how in touch are you with your goals. Did what you think of fit in line with your goals? It can show you or give you some insight as to whether you're a saver or a spender. It can show you whether you're into short-term pain for long-term gain or vice versa. It can tell you a lot about you. So that gives you, our listeners, something to... Oh, and before we wrap this up, or before we start to put some recommendations together, something that I forgot to ask you about, Nick, student loan debt. Would you use your $100,000 to pay off the student loan debt?
Dave, I told you I'm buying scratchers.
That's your financial strategy. You and Brian.
In all honesty, I haven't thought about payments because President Biden has, put it off until January.
Yeah.
So how about we table this until January?
All right. Well, we'll circle back. We'll circle back in January. I'm going to ask you the same question. And then one other point that I was thinking about is, I talked to everybody about, hey, go see the tax man. Well, is stuff like this taxable? And the answer is go talk to your accountant, because I don't want to give you any tax advice. But perhaps in a general kind of way, people could understand that if somebody gives you a gift, I mean, just walks up and goes, "Hey, you want 100,000?" And you think about it for a minute and go, okay. That's usually not a taxable event. Now, it might be taxable on their end because it's a gift, depending upon what they've done with their estate planning and the gifts that they've given, et cetera, et cetera. But if someone gives you a gift where you're not doing any work, where you're not, there's no consideration for services rendered or for something transferred to them, usually that's going to be tax-free on the recipient's part. But the same is not true with gambling. Gambling is seen as putting forth some effort, and gambling can be taxable. In fact, when they talk about these lottery winnings, hey, I just won $100 million lottery. Great, except for that's payable over 20 years. So you need to devalue that to the current value of that money, which is significantly less. And you can take a lump sum, but again, it's really quite a bit less. And then you got to pay taxes on top of that, figure almost half. These big lottery winning pots are not nearly as big as, the advertisement leads you on to believe. So really, if you only end up with 100 million, it's almost not worth, buying the lottery ticket. I mean,
Dave,
100 million, that's not much.
I just got breaking news from Bloomberg.
Yeah.
So it's reputable. It says Elon Musk suggested he'd sell 10% of his Tesla stock to pay more taxes. Speaking of taxes.
Elon should stay out of politics. I happen to like a lot of his politics, but he should stay out of politics. He's the Thomas Edison. He's the next Steve Jobs. He's the next, Carnegie or Rockefeller or something like that. But when these guys start delving into politics, more often than not, it creates,
Well, maybe one day we'll go to Mars.
Yeah. I ain't getting in no rocket. That's all I'm saying. I'm not ready for that. Did you see, who was it that they offered to, Bezos offered to sell Tom Hanks a seat on one of the rocket flights. Because Tom Hanks is way up into space exploration. He's done all these space movies and stuff. He's way up into it. And he said, "No, I don't want to spend that kind of money." So I guess they gave the spot to
Captain Kirk. Captain Kirk.
Yeah. Classic. All right. So let's circle back. Let's wrap this up. Here's what I would recommend. 6 points. 1, check with your tax person and know what the net is going to be. Inheritance and gifting may be very different than gambling, but know what it is and set the money aside. Point number 1. 2, see where you're at with the 5 steps that we put together to financial success and the 3 additional things to consider. Remember what those are, Nick? 1, get rid of the cards. 2, know your cash flow. 3, eliminate debt. And we spent 3 episodes in the early days talking about 3 ways to eliminate debt. So this gets back to this issue. Should you pay debt with your winnings? I mean, I've actually advised somebody on that issue. And the answer is yeah, it sucks. But pay your debts with the winnings. You need to clear the deck first before you can move forward in a positive way. It sucks, but it's the smart move. Number 4, put together an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months. Number 5, put 15% into savings. And then the last 3, consider housing, education, and charity. So take a look at your 5 steps plus the 3 additional things to consider and see where you fall on that progression. And that will help you make some decisions as to what to do with this money. Number 3, talk with the spouse, talk with your advisors, get their opinion, get some opinions from people that you respect. But don't just tell other people's outside of your very close group. Don't tell the family at the holidays that you've got this, because you know what? They'll all want a loan. They'll all come to you. They'll all have an idea what you should buy that everyone can use. And believe me, the best families still have these kinds of issues. Even the best group of friends at work and other places, you're going to have these issues. Everyone's going to need some money. Everyone's going to come to you and say, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool if you bought a boat and we could all go out in the boat and go fishing," or something like that. You don't need those kinds of issues. Number 5, do something to remember the great day, to remember the great event. Spend some, or love where it all goes if you're totally into that. But do a little something that's special, maybe something for yourself. And number 6, don't let it get whittled away. I see so many people, they put money in there and it's a little this, little that, and they turn around 3-4 years, it's all gone. It's too hard to pool money to do something substantial with. So if you get a chunk like that, put it somewhere, don't dig into it, do something comprehensive. I mean, if you really do want to just pull a little something off the top, something small that you can appreciate, put the rest, reduce your mortgage, or put the rest of it in a fund, and for the rest of your life generate, that interest and pull it out and have money every month for the rest of your life. Whatever you decide to do, what's important to you, do that, rather than just get it whittled away by, we bought a place off the grid, a little cabin, and it fell over, and we bought a camper van for $100,000 and now it's worth 20. We chartered a yacht. Boy, that was a great day, but that money's gone. Do something very deliberate and make sure that it falls into your grid. Well, I think we're going to have to do a wrap. Nick, I know we got some emails that we want to respond to, but we've already spent too much time talking about this very interesting and frankly kind of fun topic.
Very, very fun, Dave.
We should only have these problems. And in fact, we should only have these problems on multiple occasions, right?
I mean, if that's the worst thing that happens to us, I think we'll be okay.
It's a good day. It's a good month. It's a good year and a good lifetime. All right, everybody. Tune in next week. It's Thanksgiving week, and we are going to talk about an attitude for gratitude again. So key to your financial success, so key to your personal success, and so key to having a happy and productive life. Nick, thanks for coming in. As always, we appreciate it.
Davey, thank you for having me.
Hey, everybody. We'll talk to you next week. This is Dave Hagan, and you've been listening to the Financial Wellness Podcast.
You've been listening to the Financial Wellness Podcast, Dave's weekly message to keep you on your path to financial success. If you have a question that you would like Dave to answer on the podcast, go to thefinancialwellnesspodcast.com. You can leave an audio message with one click of a button, or type your message into the question box. Either way, it's sent right to Dave's phone. Remember, Dave will randomly draw from the submitted questions and pick the winner of a free 1-hour personal conversation with Dave to help you achieve your financial goals. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you receive the new episode notifications, or share the podcast via the app with your family and friends. This is your announcer, Nick Appel, wishing you every financial success.